Greetings from STO Better Tactical. Today's Elite TFO is best served cold. Let's review the objectives.
The first objective of this TFO is to defeat a Klingon fleet. Once the fleet is destroyed, secure control stations Alpha, Beta, and Gamma by flying in close proximity to them and defeating House Mokai infiltrators that arrive periodically. Maintaining Allied presence near a control station will cause its defense satellites to flip to your side. Control stations left exposed to House Mokai ships for too long will turn their defense satellites on player ships. The stations must be defended for 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Following this, prisoners will attempt to escape from the nearby prison world below. Stop escaping transports by damaging them to low health and then securing them through the standard interact, starting from at least 7 kilometers to initiate the capture of a disabled transport. There is no leash distance once a capture has begun. Accidentally killing disabled transports is extremely unlikely, and they regenerate 50% health upon being disabled. No transport may escape, or the TFO will fail. Once captured, transports will head into orbit and must be escorted to safety. Maintain control over the stations during this time to prevent defense satellites or House Mokai vessels from destroying the transports. This phase takes at least 6 minutes. Once all 20 transports are disabled, captured, and escorted safely to the warp-out point, the final stage of the operation will begin. 100 dilithium haulers will emerge and attempt to reach the control stations to destroy them by self-destructing. Your objective is to destroy the haulers while keeping the stations intact. Should a station be destroyed, the mission will fail. Once your team has destroyed 100 haulers with all control stations surviving, the mission completes.
Thank you. On to risks and rewards. This map needs substantial coordination to play on Elite, and the threat level is high due to warp core breaches from dilithium haulers and the threat from the Navarre warships. This map has a time floor of at least 8.5 minutes and will likely end up being closer to 15 minutes when the other parts of the TFO are considered. It is currently bugged and rewards a large amount of any choice of marks, as well as the potential for an isomagnetic plasma piece, so the rewards are definitely worth the time and effort needed to run it successfully. The enemies on this operation are House Mokai Klingon vessels. Most of their ships are relatively weak and don't inflict significant damage, so opposition is generally light. However, there are 2 threats to consider. First, the largest House Mokai vessels you will face are Navarre-class warships, which have an ability called isometric charge that can one-shot less survivable player ships depending on how it bounces. Second, dilithium haulers have a larger warp core breach radius, 3 kilometers compared to the standard 2 kilometers. This breach effect cannot be negated by typical nullifying effects like the dark matter quantum torpedo launcher or digitizer beams. Tactics. Most of the TFO should divide a team of up to 5 players across the 3 defense stations. The strength of each player should be considered, but assigning 1 player each to Alpha and Beta station and at least 2 to Gamma station is advisable if there are 2 players that can each solo a station. The last player can either roam or help cover Gamma. Having 2 players at Gamma will allow 2 players to engage the transports in the next stage. Those 2 players should focus on disabling first, then capturing the transports. Disabled transports will go nowhere and aren't a major threat, whereas a transport escaping will result in mission failure on Elite. That said, the mission will not advance until all captured transports evacuate, so care should be taken to prioritize securing transports. The final player can remain at Gamma to help keep it from reverting to House Mokai allegiance, or roam as needed. In the final stage, keeping players close to the stations is important, as losing a single starbase will cause the mission to fail on Elite. Players can roam as dilithium haulers are cleared out, but mind the blast radius and prioritize keeping control stations clear of haulers. Now, combat footage will be shown to illustrate the principles discussed previously. The goal of this section is not to illustrate perfect piloting, but provide an example of how to successfully complete the map, with all objectives and without dying. Note that for brevity's sake, the footage is usually sped up relative to in-game speed. Exotic builds excel on this map, as House Mokai ships are fairly numerous and flimsy, which makes them great targets for exotic AoE. A capable exotic build can wipe out the initial fleet virtually without assistance, and the flimsy Mokai ships in general are good targets for AoE powers. As you can see here, securing a control station is no problem. Avoid using all of your abilities on a single Mokai infiltrator. They will respawn frequently enough that you'll want to have some abilities in reserve for each new arrival. There is also no need to target the defense satellites unless you are concerned about them damaging your health. Eventually they will revert to your control and assist you somewhat against the House Mokai ships. If you take out a few, don't worry about it, their contribution is not significant. Keep your focus on defeating the infiltrators and staying close to your control station for the duration of this section, which is about 2.5 minutes. By positioning myself at Control Station Gamma, I am prepared to assist my team in the next stage, which is the transport capture. Once a transport is disabled, you must be within 7 kilometers of it to begin capture, but there is no leash distance once capture has started. The transports will spawn in waves. A group of 1, another 1, then 2, then 3, then 5, and then 8 transports at once. As I fly down towards the planet's surface to engage the transports, it becomes evident why we left 2, or in this case 3 players at Control Station Gamma. 1 player could remain to defend the control station, while the others went down to the planet side to secure the transports. The House Mokai ships that will arrive periodically are not particularly threatening. You can deal with them at your leisure, but focus on transports in this stage. Disabled transports have an exclamation point over them. Captured transports have a shield icon. With 2 players assisting in the capture and the presence of a strong EPG build, this section is relatively easy. Note the use of Gravity Well to cluster transports and make them easier to disable for the rest of my exotic abilities. Again, note that I space out my abilities. 2 or 3 abilities or console actives is plenty to handle a single transport. I would rather have more abilities available to hit transports that escape the initial AoE. With Gravity Well, especially on the later groups where you have multiple transports, it's advisable to target the central transport to make sure that your Gravity Well's radius will pull on all the transports that are affected. Again, having another teammate available to help secure the transports and speed up that process will accelerate the TFO. As we complete this section, there is a minute-long briefing between it and the final stage. While the voiceover is well acted by J.G. Hertzler and Robert O'Reilly, we're going to skip it for the purposes of this video. In the final stage, Gravity Well is very useful for grouping dilithium haulers for the rest of your area of effect abilities. Be wary of Navarre warships, which can easily one-shot more fragile builds. Again, try not to use all your abilities on a single group of transports and then be left waiting on cooldowns while attacking the next group. Dilithium haulers will spawn in groups from the space platforms, so keep your attention focused there initially. As the haulers are thinned out, move to the edges of the triangle formed by the control stations until your team has eliminated all 100. Keep an eye out for haulers approaching the control stations, and use your speed boosts like evasive maneuvers to get there quickly. This part is not time gated, but might take a few minutes to complete, until your team can destroy all of the haulers and complete the TFO. Once again, be mindful of the blast radius of dilithium haulers. The 3-kilometer radius frequently catches players off guard and does significant damage. It cannot be negated with effects like the dark matter torpedo's passive. So once again, be careful of your distance and avoid getting caught in multiple breaches.
Lithium haulers within proximity. More ships! Withdraw!
Captain, if this breakdown helped you in your quest to play STO better, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. The link to the specific build used for this tutorial is in the description. For more guides and builds, check us out at www.stobetter.com.